Inquiry. When we get to the I in the word think, we've talked about theology, the foundation. We've talked about the history of events and ideas and how important they are in shaping our worldview, the lens through which we're seeing the world. But now as we move into our posture, we have to have a posture of inquisitiveness, of inquiry. You see, inquiry is where we start to ask good questions, where we start to explore the world of ideas and information and the people we're actually engaging with. The more informed we can be, the more information we can gather, the better we'll be able to inform our ways, our decisions, our beliefs, the ways in which we're going to speak to many different types of matters. You see, our world is growing more and more complex. It's not as simple as to just show up in any conversation assuming you know the right answer. And being people of inquiry, we are curious people. We are people who want to know the story behind the story. We want to explore, we want to investigate. We want to be people who don't just have information, but as Neil Postman writes, take that information, which then leads to knowledge, which then helps us find wisdom. How do we apply that information to this moment? Abraham Heschel says this: we are closer to God when we are asking questions than when we think we have the answers. You see, we don't become inquiring people by thinking we have all the answers. Now, certainly you have confidence in your theology. You've looked at things through history. You're starting to grow in confidence, but you're going to take this next step to just explore a little bit. Make sure you're not having a blind spot to a certain issue. Make sure some experience you've had in your past or some statement that you heard from a friend or from somebody who was influential in your life is actually true. You see, C.S. Lewis said this: thirst was made for water, inquiry for truth. You see, truth and inquiry are linked. If we want to find out what is actually true, we're going to be people who aren't afraid to ask questions. We're not afraid of any topic. We're not afraid of any conversation or cultural issue. We'll just be people who want to go explore it, to ask better questions, to push us towards finding better answers. Thomas Aquinas said, curiosity is insatiable. Study is attentive, even contemplative. Curiosity pursues knowledge to gain control, but studiousness means learning out of delight. So let's be students. Let's look at cultural issues that come along. Maybe it's something your children raise or a friend of yours asks you about, or maybe it's your spouse. And as they're exploring this issue, be okay exploring it with them. Don't feel that you just have to have the answer in the moment. Be a person who says, you know what? I don't know. I need to explore that. I need to ask some better questions. I need to maybe look at history a bit. I maybe need to look at Scripture. I need to understand this thing through a different lens. And by being these types of people, we start to invite people into conversation versus repelling them with the hubris that says, I have all the answers. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. How do you test things? You test things by asking questions. You test things by exploring them. You test them, but you also make sure they align with what his will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now, there are some warnings when we're being inquisitive people. The first is consider your sources. We're in an age now where many people just parrot information they've received. Somebody shared an article with them, shared a statement with them, a quote with them. They parrot it, but they actually didn't see the original source. They just start to believe the headline. In fact, many times we don't even read the article. We don't take time to read the book. We read a couple quotes about the book, maybe an endorsement about the book, but we don't actually do the work. If we're going to be the types of Christians that are actually offering value to the world, then we must do the work. We must do the reading. We must go find original sources. When you hear something that's a little confusing to you, or maybe it sounds off, or maybe you're excited by it, but you're not listening to the original source, just someone telling you about something, but it's not necessarily based in fact, then you take the time to go do the work, to say, who said this? Where did they say this? Why did they say that? Of course, this takes extra time, but in a world that's so bent on speed and productivity, to have wisdom will take time. We won't always have the answer on the tip of our tongue or be able to quickly look it up or Google it or know for sure that we're getting the right answer, which leads me to the second warning. When we're being inquisitive, recognize that artificial intelligence is alive and well. Now, that's a scary statement to make, but artificial intelligence is starting to infuse itself into so much of the things we're reading, you're being shown, things that even people are now writing. And so how do we be the kinds of people that go investigate, that make sure, again, the words you're reading are from an original source? How do we do that kind of work? Well, we do that by seeking out the right answers. We seek it out by being inquisitive. We search, we learn, we look at theology, we look at history, we look at the new headlines that we're reading about, and we make sure the story being told to us is actually true. Now, we're in a sad state as a culture to where we have to do the homework. We're not able to just trust media. We're not able to just trust those we used to could trust that were giving us information. And in some ways, this is a good revelation. It's been good to see the exposure that we maybe shouldn't just trust what our government tells us. We shouldn't just trust what the media tells us. We need to do the investigation on our own. Perhaps we've gotten lazy, and perhaps that laziness has put us in a position to where we no longer know how to think well. It reminds me of the Aldous Huxley quote from Brave New World, where he talks about technology has undone our capacities to think. In a world where we're not thinking well anymore, it's going to take leaders like you doing the work. It's going to take you doing the research. It's going to take you maybe searching at THINQ Media for more information, for more insights, for experts, for practitioners, for thought leaders who have done the work, who've written the books, who've taken the time to search out a subject and search out a topic so that you can be more informed, so that as you create conversations and start conversations, you can do so with confidence. Jackie Hill Perry says this: light has a way of welcoming in the truth and letting it put its feet up, which in turn means that everything not like it, though it may invite itself over, can't get comfortable enough to stay. When we get comfortable asking questions, inviting any opinion in the door, being willing to engage those conversations, the light has a way of exposing what is true, and the darkness tends to flee. So let's be the kind of people that are inquisitive. We're willing to ask questions. We're willing to engage. We're willing to be humble. But we're always going to remain curious because we aren't God. We don't know all the answers, but we're going to do our best to discern them and to help lead others towards wisdom.